Boom. Welcome back to our movie watching thing that we've not.
Wow.
Hey,
We've got to get better at
we will.
titles.
Well, see, okay, yeah. Hey, welcome back. I'm Andrew. That's Mac. Indiana Jones. Last one. Here we are. But
Yeah.
I completely forgot the whole gimmick thing I wanted to do with this was at the end of each one we would discuss "'tis it a whale," and it being a whale meant it was a positive, and "'tis not a whale" meant it was a negative. I thought of that months ago, and we haven't done it once because I completely forgot. That's the name of the channel, is the movie whale. So
I mean, it's complete nonsense, but
of course it is, but like that's our thing. But like that will help us determine whether it's a good movie or not. "'Tis it a whale," and so far, your opinion on all these Indiana Jones movies until Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, "'tis not a whale."
Sorry.
So we'll have to discuss.
I'm so sorry. Honestly, even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull isn't really "'tis a whale," but
Fair. "'Tis not
I
a
liked
whale."
it better.
Yeah, "'tis a porpoise." But anyway,
Yeah.
we're on Dial of Destiny, the last one. We made it through Indiana Jones. I hesitate to ask, what are your general thoughts before we get into some specifics?
Okay. Preface by saying, still not my favorite film of all time.
Well, of course.
But I genuinely enjoyed this one. This one was great.
Yes!
I had a good time.
Finally! Even though you fell asleep.
I was just having weird things. We talked about this.
I know.
I was like narcoleptic for the
Did you
weekend.
rewatch it, or did you just pick up where you fell asleep?
I rewatched it.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
I happened to fall asleep right about the same time they were switching from that half story they always start with, the half adventure they always start with, into like the actual one.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this. It has like 1.5 adventures in it. It starts with that half
I love
adventure.
their opening adventure.
Yeah. I did go back and I caught the end of it just to make sure that I'd seen everything, but I didn't fully one sitting this movie, I guess.
Yes, okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, I've now seen this movie twice. I think it may be my favorite one of the five. I don't know. I'm torn because I really do like
That's
3.
That's also a controversial opinion,
I know. What's that? Okay, look. I know a lot of people didn't like this when it came out, and I think a lot of that is due to the obvious, which is there's a woman. Not everyone. Don't come at me. Don't come at me. I know that's not the only reason. I know this is not everyone's cup of tea. It's a little longer, and not everyone loves seeing their childhood heroes become old and have to retire. Yeah,
and then I definitely showed up in this one a little bit, but they did it well.
For me, I actually like it a lot. But the character, Helena's character, I guess if we're on that right now, I like her character a lot. I really do. Unironically, fully, I find her interesting. She's clearly, this is what I meant last week. I don't know if we talked about it on the episode or just you and I do feel like this movie has some unintentional feelings of backtracking, where this is the kid that Jones would have had. Like, she strikes me as a combination of Indy and Marion. She's got all of Indiana Jones's intelligence and Marion's survival and manipulation. That's her whole thing. She's Indiana Jones's kid with a lot of but absent parenting, and this is what she became. Instead of becoming a historian or a museum or a professor person, she's out there selling stuff because she knows its value and she knows the connection. She's worldly, she's learned, she's intellectual, but she's a criminal. I think it's really interesting, but it is at the cost that we have killed off Mutt. Which I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. I want your thoughts. Okay. I want your thoughts on Helena, and then also on the killing off of Mutt.
Yes. So Helena, overall, thumbs up. I like her. She works incredibly well as a foil for Jones's character, which all of his companions are supposed to do, but she does exceptionally well, I think. I like that she knows as much and is as obsessed about things. I like that she, kind of like Jones, definitely has unresolved issues and doesn't really deal with them face on until it's important. And so you have good little character arcs there, basic but useful little character arcs. And I like that she kind of has accidentally done a lot of the same things that Indy does, like the fact that she's got a little adopted kid running around with her. And yeah, I think she's cool. I think it is a little confusing. Like, I think they make it pretty clear in the movie, like with the dialogue and everything. Don't know if they could have done anything really differently, but she doesn't really look like her father's child. She kind of looks more like a child between Indy and Marion.
Yeah,
like
I was
you
gonna
were
say, I think she
saying.
kind of looks like
Yeah.
Marion too, like in some ways.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And the fact that Mutt's just like not in the picture even more, I think, confuses it. I think the main reason they didn't have Mutt around is like probably an actor thing.
I think
I don't think it was a story choice. But then the way that they adjusted it was interesting.
I like that they do bring it into the story. Like I do like I'm sorry, I wanted your thoughts on Mutt before I started talking again.
I mean, like, to sum it up, I kind of felt at first that to have him die in the war was kind of like a cheap way to remove a character, but then it comes back later as a part of a character, and they use it in just like one emotional moment, and then kind of like subtext in other emotional moments. And honestly, it worked. Not my favorite narrative choice, but they used it rather than just throwing it in there, right? So I think it was a decent choice.
Yeah. So I did not look into this a lot. I know that a lot of people did not like the inclusion of Shia LaBeouf in the last one. I included. I don't like his character. I don't like his presence. I kind of think he's a nothing character. I don't think he's an interesting foil for Jones. And as far as like the world of Indiana Jones, the kind of kids he'd have, what's the point? It was just like, I feel like making Mutt his son in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is like the only thing you did to make him interesting. And again, like with the backtracking, like they definitely removed him because people didn't like him. Now to kill him off, it's almost like, oh, God damn, did we have to go that far? But then, like, yeah, I agree, and I do think it was interesting how they made it impact the character and impact the story a lot. He and Marion have split because of it. He's really upset about it. It's unfortunate when a character's biggest impact is that they are dead. But I wasn't super upset about it because I didn't like his character and I didn't want him back.
And I understand why people don't like his character, but I do gotta say, like, I didn't dislike it. I don't think he's like top Indiana Jones characters like at all. But I kind of liked that. I kind of liked that Indiana Jones is like, he's not totally like thoughtful, and you know, he thinks out each step before he makes it, right? But he definitely prefers to have a plan rather than not. And then this kid shows up and he's just like total teenager, just kind of jumping into action, and he forces things to happen in the plot, and I'm like kind of okay with that in terms of like energy and interest. But I don't know. I don't know that he would have really added all that much to this movie. I would have liked to see a couple of scenes with him, if I'm being honest, because I feel like he could have added to the fun chaos of some of the moments. But more than just kind of like running around shenanigans, I don't know that I missed him. So
I don't know. But like, I mean, so the flip side of that though, again, I like Helena's character. I like her motivation. I like her role, and I want to come back to her in the end, like with what she does at the very end. I know there are people that would argue that she's a Mary Sue character because she's smart and she survives and she runs and she drives and she
Jones
so is Jones. Like also they actively make the joke throughout the movie as to who is rescuing who all the time because they're both having those issues. So it's I don't care. That's just people just bitching to bitch.
That's dumb. Okay, if you have an established story where a character has had to work really hard to develop their skills and then someone shows up and can just do it, you have a valid critique there if it's not done well in the story. This is a story that has started from the beginning as a rude know-it-all who thinks he knows what's best for everybody and pushes everybody around to get what he wants and can just do it because we want to see a fun action adventure hero climb things up or ride along on the bottom of a car or as it's like driving on a gravel road. So I don't want to hear it about impracticalities and abilities and character because that's how this whole thing started.
Absolutely. It's okay when the man does it, just not anyone with different reproductive organs. But anyway, going all the way back to the beginning, because we did skip over it, the little mini adventure in the beginning. I think it's my favorite one of the 5. I love it.
It's pretty good.
I like, isn't it? I feel like of the Indiana Jones movies, this opening, it feels, after Raiders, I would say, it feels the most Indiana Jones. The fact that a bomb is slowly falling through the floor because of a carpet, and then
laughed
the
at
thing,
that.
yeah, but like it's ludicrous, but like the use of environment, the use of physics, and then the fact that the noose saves him, like,
Yeah.
Spielberg would be proud. Like, I feel like it was brilliant and it was fun, and then the train sequence is great. The classic, already disguised as a Nazi, and they're like, he's already disguised as one when they bring him in. And I think we do have to talk about his face a little bit, because I'm curious as to what you thought of it, because I feel like at first it's a little weird, but I get into it pretty quickly. I think if you're not looking for it,
I think it's one of those things where once you adjust to it, you kind of forget it's there.
Yeah.
Things like, it's not so egregious that you see the seams a lot. You do have to kind of like when you first see it, you're like, that feels off, but then you just kind of like adjust to it and you don't think about it anymore. So I wasn't too bothered by it. I mean, I do think anytime they do something like that, it looks slightly off to us.
Right.
And I always kind of, if I'm gonna be honest, I kind of like that. I like it when it's just good enough that you can believe it if you choose to, but when you pay attention to it, you can see the slight faults or it looks off. Be able to tell the difference between a real and a fake person. So when that gap goes away and things just look 100% convincing all of the time, I will be concerned.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with the level of special effect that they had on his face.
I think for me, the thing that made it hard to sell in the very beginning is he's still got old man voice. He sounds and acts like current Harrison Ford, and not so much like where Jones would be around the time of just after Last Crusade. But beyond that, like, no, the adventure is great. This new character, Baz.
Nick? Oh, Baz. Okay.
I can't remember his last name. It's like a good Europe old crazy scientist last name. But he's great, and the train adventures, I'm always down for a good train sequence. The great big machine gun slowly taking out parts of...
I was going to mention that. I liked that.
That was so good. Like, this whole sequence, I really love it. I love it so much. I'll go back to just rewatch those bits now, because it's just so much fun.
I like all of the, like, little choices that they make for it, too. Like, the fact that it's I forget exactly what the name is, but like the lance that pierced Jesus' side. And it's Nazis. So like, not only does it make sense that Nazis would be chasing Christian artifacts just from history, but it also makes sense that in this instance, these guys would also be after it, because that's also what we see in Raider of the Lost Ark.
Exactly. And consistent and pulling in threads. Goblet. The Goblet of Fire and the Sorcerer's Stone and all those other things that Jones was getting. No, I really, again, I think that helps with it. I think it was a smart decision, and I'm sure it was all done intentionally, after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, to make this opening feel as Indiana Jones as possible without feeling too... Like they hit all the things, right? He's disguising himself as an enemy. There's a motorcycle sequence. There's a car chase. There's a fight on a train. There's a new scientist buddy. There are Nazis. There's Christian artifacts. Like, that's the first 3 Indiana Jones movies all summed up into a 10-minute opening. But like, it still feels fresh. The motorcycle fight, and he like hitting the sidecar off with a tree. The fight in the car, like, all of it felt new and felt different, but it also, when you watch these all back to back, it's like, okay, like, the fact that he is dragged along the roof of a tunnel in the train, like during the train fight sequence, like, that's just, I loved it.
It's the inverse of the car thing.
Exactly, and I love it. I love it. It's so good. And yeah, the Antikythera thing where they get it, cool, that's great, love all that. But okay, now we're in modern day.
It is nice that they went Greek, because I don't... They hadn't really done that yet, and I feel like there's a lot of Roman and Greek stuff they haven't.
This is the only one that is not directly related to a god of some sort of culture, which is interesting. It is a step away, but it's interesting, and I don't hate it, because I
like it.
Yeah. As when I had heard about this movie when they first announced it, in the leaked synopsis or the main synopsis was that Nazis were going to try to grab some sort of artifact to reshape history. I was like, oh no, it's going to be dumb. There's going to be some sort of campy, cheesy artifact that quite literally changes time. And then here comes this dude who's like, no. Archimedes was just so mathematically genius that he came up with a compass that can detect legitimate physical fissures in time. And I'm like, okay, I like that. That's fair.
Yeah, I wasn't really grasping. Well, you weren't supposed to until this moment, but they were like, Archimedes was a mathematical genius. Math is everything. And I was like, okay, yeah, but what is a fancy compass gonna do? And then they said can detect temporal fissures, and I went, are we doing time travel?
You didn't know that going in?
Travel? No, I did not know going in.
Oh my gosh. See, I knew that months in advance, and I was really worried about how they were going to do it. And in the end, I think they did it really, really well. We should hold off on that because that's the end of the movie. We should talk about
that's like the other end of the episode.
We'll come back to it. We'll come back to how they handled the time travel. First of all, now we're modern day, right? And we got old Jones, who's still fit. Good for him. Poor Harrison Ford. I can't imagine what they put that man through. But yeah, it's 69? That's when we went to the moon? Or is it 63 we went to the moon?
That's correct.
69? Yeah. So that's cool. I do like the consistent Indiana Jones thing where he's popping up during real historical things. And I
think it is cool to have that one too. Because you really feel, with how excited everybody is to get to the moon, you feel how kind of abandoned we're leaving, subject feels.
Yes, no one cares about Earth anymore. I do like that. It's funny to see as well the reaction of his classes in the previous movies and what the class is like now.
His classes were all pretty engaged previously, and now they're kind of like. And I wasn't really sure if that was supposed to be a reflection on how his teaching style has changed, because I gotta be honest, it was kind of a dry lecture, or if it was supposed to be a reflection on the cultural change, or potentially both, right? So
I think it's gotta be. See, I don't know. There's interesting ways to look at it, because in the very first movie, they just imply how much the ladies find him attractive, but in the third one, he's got lots and lots of students just very much interested in him. And I wondered, to what extent do they know about his escapades? Do they know how awesome of a guy this is? Is he a hero to all of them? Like, they don't make it super clear. And so then in this one, I think it is meant to be more of a cultural thing. I think in the time when he was Professor Jones, back in the Dr. Jones, more people were interested in the archaeology, and now they just don't care. I do think some of it has to have been, though, that he was just a badass, and they knew it, and he isn't anymore. Or at least they don't know it.
Yeah, you make a good point.
Yeah, and then so Helena shows up. That's great, and again, classic Indiana Jones. Everything he's talking about is the stuff we end up dealing with later. I think it is.
I love the way they do that. I mean, even when they switch from the adventure and they pan into him in his apartment, there's a picture of Jesus getting lanced right before we see Jones. So like their ability to fold everything in is really good in this movie, and I feel like it's done consistently in the other movies as well. I'd have to go back and watch the first one again to know for sure. I don't feel like the first one does it as much, but the other movies make an effort to kind of like fold in the layers and the things that are said. Like even that one throwaway line in Crystal Skull where he's talking about when he tells a student to like look up some particular thing about how cultures all end up being the same, and it connects to aliens later down the line. Like that's.
Or the X marks the spot thing in the third one.
Yeah. Although that one pains me a little bit, because how do you not see the giant X on the floor when you walk in the room?
I think the thing they do, like the foreshadowing, the Chekhov's gun that they do with the lectures, it does grow, and that I think so. Like with three is where they really start laying it on thick, because in 2 there's no episode, there's no scene with the school. He's not even there. But with 3, it opens with his dad, with his journal, drawing those bits and pieces of the window. And then he's got his whole thing of X never marks the spot. And if you're like an attentive, active movie watcher and you've never seen this before, you're like, okay, so that diary is important. That window is important. And then when something X marks the spot, you're like, ah ha ha. It's like that thing he said. But like, especially if you go into this movie not knowing about the time travel, you have no idea that lecture is going to become relevant. Everyone's snoring. You're paying attention to the massive cultural difference. You have no clue. And I think they set it up very, very well.
Well, I know that it's clueless because they do pretty quickly bring in Archimedes, and they mention in the opening that it's Archimedes' dial.
Right, but you have no reason to expect with the way these films are set up that you're gonna go and witness that battle, that you're gonna be there, that's what's gonna happen. True. Like, it makes sense that Archimedes' dial, and he's talking about Archimedes. Yeah, that tracks. You don't know that the thing he's specifically lecturing about is what the end of the movie is gonna be.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong in that. Maybe I'm being naive, but I feel like
no, I didn't know that, and I went in not knowing it was a time travel thing. I mean, I picked up on the temporal fissures thing that they threw out pretty early on, but I did not, think this lecture that he's specifically saying is going to be super relevant by the end of the film, right? So,
So okay, moving on from that. We got some downtime. We're talking to Wombat.
I like their initial interactions. I like that Wombat tricks Jones.
Yes.
The scene where they're starting to be chased by the CIA.
At the time, it's CIA with the help of Nazis.
Yeah,
but it turns out it's the Nazis using the CIA.
It's actually rather clever because, Helena just gets away. Like, she does the Jones thing, and then Jones is a little touch too slow, and you see the physical difference. Now, he still does some pretty fun stunts. Like, he knocks the bookshelves over and he kind of rides it down to the floor, right? And that's classic Jones. But he doesn't have the immediate response and agility that he used to, and you see it in his face because he's probably not been on an adventure in a minute,
right?
And he's you can see that he's like, oh wow, I have lost my touch for a second, and the choice to show that initially in the start, I think, was a really strong and brave one, because it'd be really tempting to be like, he hasn't lost his touch at all. This is Indiana Jones, right? But here it's like, he's got to warm up. There's some things that, he's got aches and pains and things. And
I like about that a lot is he takes like a punch or two from the regular goons, but they make a point that he's at least faster than the big one. Because if the big one laid a single land, dead, just immediately dead, and I would have been like, nope, you're dead. But he at least is able to evade him, so I think it's believable he could take a punch or two from the little guys, but not the mountain.
Agreed.
It is funny that I don't know his name. I know they say it. The guy with the mustache. He plays the Corinthian in the Sandman show, so I'm gonna call him Corinthian. He gets punched in the face by Indy like 5 times, and it's brilliant. It's like 80% of his character is just being there to be punched in the face by Indiana Jones, and I love it.
And his costumes, dude. When he's on the boat, he's wearing like a floral shirt.
It's a very punchable face.
I feel like they almost use him as a piece of scenery or like a joke as a character more than anything. He's used well, don't get me wrong. He's not just there as a punching bag, but the visual impact of the character to me is almost always humorous. He's too tall for the frame at one point, and you just see his shoulders down, and then the way that his costume changes, he shouldn't be these guys don't need to be in disguise when they're on their own boat.
I know.
And he's just dressed for vacation, gonna go take some guys out. What is going on?
I mean, you gotta remember, they're Nazis. They weren't known for being smart. Despite the main one being a big mathematician guy. Whatever.
Yeah.
I think as far as villains go in the Indiana Jones movies, I do like this one a lot. For one, the portrayal is great. Mads Mikkelsen is wonderful. He's in it more than Balak, so I think he's more interesting. We get more of his actual character. He has more of a discernible goal than the bad guy in Doom, Temple of Doom, and he's not just a corporate asshole like the one in Last Crusade, and it's not Kate Blanchett with a bad accent in 4. I mean, if anything, I think you could make an argument this is the best villain of the 5.
I wouldn't argue against that. Maybe I think as much as I'm not crazy about the first movie, the first one's villain is pretty solid.
It's pretty solid.
Like,
it's just we don't get a
clear
lot
motivations. You don't get a lot of them, but he's got clear motivations. His goons are pretty, like, they're good enough as goons, right? They're believable. They make enough mistakes.
And
for the
he's
plot to be
the
interesting,
perfect
but they're
other
also
side of the coin for
enough.
Jones in that first movie. Like,
exactly.
He does work.
Yeah.
He works. But I like...
But I don't feel like any of the other villains really, truly landed.
No, not
so
quite.
This one might be the best one.
And then I do like the twist at the end. Not a big twist, but like when Jones is like, okay, so who are you gonna go back and kill so that you can win the war? Churchill or the president? What you gonna do? He's like, no, I'm gonna take out Hitler. He's like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, yeah, because I saw every mistake he made, so I'm gonna be the new one. It's like,
honestly, much scarier than any of the other options.
Right? I was like,
Hitler was kind of an idiot sometimes, and
I thought I think that's brilliant. It's spooky. That's really fun because I was not expecting that. So he's a fun little villain to play around with. You mentioned the chase scene through the city. I love the chase scene through the city because it's so cool to see the youngins on the motorcycles and Jones is on a horse and winning. Like the two different eras and times and whatnot. Like it works. Like we've seen Jones on a motorcycle before. It's not new.
Yeah, I mean Jones and a motorcycle go hand in hand, but the choice to put him on a horse for this and then put everybody else on motorcycles, it was clearly like a look at the old, look at the new.
Right.
You know.
In the environment,
it worked well.
Yeah, in the environment that everyone's celebrating the astronauts, and now it's not even the focus. Like we don't care about the astronauts now. The thing that's going on is this old archaeologist going on a new adventure, and I love it. I'm here for it. And then Saul's back, which is great.
Yes. I really feel like the whole middle of the movie is solid. Like, I usually have a complaint somewhere around here about, like, this is just action sequences, or we don't get enough emotional drive or interest in the characters.
I know, I was going to ask you about that.
That's true for this movie.
I think there was a lot of character moments in this one.
Not only does it have interesting relationships between the characters, but the motivations between the characters are well paired in the sense that they are similar and very closely connected because they both have to get the dial, but then they want different things with it. Neither of them are necessarily negatively motivated, just, one wants money, the other is just like, let's put it in a museum. I'm gonna be honest, you could argue about the quality of both those things because and I like that, like, they don't establish Helena as an antagonistic character, even though she has a contrasting motivation from Jones. Like, they do have her trick him in the beginning, and that's sort of like a betrayal because they're supposed to be
almost
not related,
family.
but family. Yeah. And then the moment we see her doing the auction, we see her have this close relationship with the kid that we just got endeared to. And so, like, you're already kind of on the fence again. You're like, okay, she stole the thing and she's selling it for money, which we don't like, but she's also taking care of this kid and she's just trying to harm anyone directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and her quips are good.
Oh, she's so good.
The actress is really
I don't know her name, but she's great, and everything I've seen her in, she's great. Yeah, I think the only thing I'm sorry if I cut you off if you're like mid thought.
No, I mean I was just gonna say, and then the action balances it out well. They have fun like moments. It doesn't feel like it's extended too long. Everything is got its like a little break moment, and then it moves into the next phase. Like it's good. I have no complaints about it.
That's so refreshing with Indiana Jones because like I know because in many ways it is a lot. It's like talking about something cool and historic and then a chase scene, and then talking about something cool and historic and then a chase scene. Like I get that's a lot of Indiana Jones, and that's the next part of this is after he finds her again in Morocco, they go on a chase scene, and that's the only thing that I feel like in this movie is not super necessary is the subplot with her fiance. That doesn't come back at all. It's not super necessary. It is kind of funny and it adds for some fun in this chase sequence, but it's not super necessary. But this chase sequence, God. She's holding on to this bag that's strangling the bad guy, hanging out of a window, while Jones is pulling at his bag from a different door. They're all in different vehicles. It's so intense. He's like gagging. It's so funny. I love it. And also, she ripped the roof of their little cart off, like the metal part, to hop over and break the... Badass. I'm not even explaining it well.
I know. She was like, I'm gonna go get it. And she literally, she decides she's gonna go to the other car. They're currently in a car chase. She decides she's gonna go to the other car and get her bag back. She goes up and she just yanks a metal bar out of the roof of the vehicle, leaps over to the back of the other car, smashes it open, and immediately starts strangling this dude as they're flying top speeds down the road.
It's so it's just funny. It's amazing. Like, I'm on the edge of my seat with it. It's my favorite chase scene. 'Cause like they have a lot of them in tanks, which don't go very fast. So this one actually like going down streets and like swerving and hopping over curbs and stuff. It was exhilarating. Love it.
It was pretty solid.
Yeah.
And then I feel like, I don't know, the like little moments that they have following that sequence kind of solidify them as a team, which is cool.
I like that she says at some point after Jones is talking about her dad and how her dad has passed, and she says, if only there was an adult male figure who kind of had that job.
A legal obligation, especially ordained
because
to...
I think it really solidifies the ending with what like the big reveal, not like a reveal, but like more of a reveal of how she feels about him. Like, it doesn't come out of nowhere. She does feel kind of resentful that he wasn't around. Like, they're really again backtracking. They've just made her his kid that he wasn't around for. They've retconned the story as a whole to say that who cares about Mutt? There was this other kid that he actually was there for in the beginning that he then became an absent father to. And I think for the most part it works. I don't want to skip it, but I do. Like, I want to get to discussing the time travel, but I think we should briefly touch on the water and all that.
Yeah, that was actually a really cool scene. I usually don't like underwater like fight scenes. I feel like they did this really well.
It was cool. Yeah, with the eels being the snakes this time around was kind of fun and dramatic and spooky. Antonio Banderas, love it. He's a great little Indiana Jones friend. I hate that they killed off every single one of his crew. That was rough. Just met the guy, but that was still rough.
So expendable.
Yeah, I do love the sequence as well where Wombat is translating the tablet and like treating everyone like it's class, while also like getting the dynamite and figuring out, like, that whole sequence is just fun because it's intellect and teamwork and manipulation, and it's fun. And it's a great character moment for her. Now that they've already illustrated that she's smart, but it's like really bringing all of her traits together and her now going into her final Indiana Jones form, which is to fight the bad guys. Like, you're using your intellect and your manipulation and your resourcefulness. It's all coming together now, and it's great. And
and like she even like the ability to throw up a front as fast as like, pay me and I'll do it. I got no problem. And like everything we know about the character previously suggests that's probably true.
No, she's gonna betray us, isn't she?
But then like you kind of like watch her as she's like explaining everything, and I'm like, something's up. And then she shows the little like pocket, and I was like, oh yeah, because we're not gonna show TNT earlier and then not use it later.
Chekhov's dynamite.
Yeah.
So the whole water sequence is great. I do enjoy that, finding the tablet and then melting it and then figuring out where to go, and of course the Nazis follow. And then
although I gotta admit, as someone who is not an archaeologist, I winced when they burnt that thing.
I know.
I was like, dude, that is ancient writing. You wouldn't like take a rubbing or something before you do that?
Like, you're just gonna trust her memory for that? Really? Nothing? Ooh. Yeah, no, I felt the same way. Okay, so then, kid gets kidnapped after getting some ice cream, and cool, they chase him. I do like the little puppet show. That was really good foreshadowing that is super, super, like, innocuous until you watch the whole movie. And then, yeah, we get to the cave, and I like that he starts referencing the past movies because he is old, and why is he doing this? He references Kali's blood and the voodoo and
being shot 9 times.
And then the Athena thing is fine. You know, just more National Treasure.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, I think they just did it for effect, but the fact that he listed Athena as the goddess of war first and then intellect was interesting, or like wisdom and learning, because she's usually referred to as the goddess of wisdom, and then additionally also goddess of strategy of war. But it was interesting that they, again, I think probably just for effect, like you put the emphasis on the end of the sentence more often than not. So that's probably why they did that. But I was kind of like raised an eyebrow. I was like, interesting choice. Okay.
Yeah, but then we find the tomb, and there's cool things in the tomb. They find the other piece, and they find a watch, and the cool phoenixes have propellers, and it's like, what? That's crazy. Oh my gosh, did it work? And then the Nazis show up, and then there's a cool plane sequence. And honestly, before we even get to the portal, her riding the motorcycle in the rain to hop on that plane, beautiful.
Okay, I do have one thing I gotta point out, though. I am not totally comfortable. I understand why it happens plot-wise, but I'm not totally comfortable with her telling the kid to go fly a plane that he's never flown before.
Yeah.
I understand why we got there, but I thought when my assumption, when we saw the kid at the very beginning, he's like learning how to fly a plane with a couple of like fake dashboard things made out of like cups and whatnot, and he's talking to a pilot, I assume, and he's learning how to fly a plane just from word of mouth. So clearly he's going to fly a plane later. But I was going to be, they're on a plane, the pilot gets shot, nobody knows how to fly the plane, and he's like, I got this. But no, she told him to take off in a plane when he's never flown before into a time portal. Following Nazis who have weapons on their plane. I got questions.
Not the best. not the best. I like to think that maybe the plan, and see, I'm doing some reaching here, but I like to think maybe the plan was to get on the plane, get Jones off, and use that plane to get away. She didn't know there was going to be a time portal. You know what I mean? Like that was not a part of her equation when she made that plan. But I don't know. I could be reaching. I guess we haven't really talked about Teddy. I like Teddy as a whole. He's the new short round. I prefer re-round, but short round. But this kid is fine. He's cool. Yeah. So now we're in the plane. We get the plan, and they put the Antikythera together, and oh my god, it works. We're going back. We're gonna do it.
But wait.
Continental Drift. I thought that was a cool little reveal though. And like the horror of Schmidt's character when he realizes, like, it's fun that he realizes that he's fucked up. Like he's not so confident in himself that he's like, no, you just wait, Jones. I'll show you. Like I like that moment. I like Jones figuring it out.
And this comes in later when they talk about the dial being a forced deck, but if he didn't know about Continental Drift, how could he force the deck?
I don't quite know. I'm not going to pretend to fully understand it, and I also don't know for sure if they fully understand it. I don't know. If we ignore whether or not it was always supposed to be something that brought them back to that point in time, I think if he just designed it that way, where like he has it where you put in your date and it automatically will bring up a portal that specifically goes to that date. I don't know if the Continental Drift plays into it or not. Like I don't think it really has to matter because it was Schmidt's error in assuming that it went into longitude and latitudes, but that's not something that he had considered.
That's a decent point.
Yeah. So I don't know. As far as movie time travel goes, I think they did it really, 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 really well. Because it's so easy to get it overly complicated, and so often they get super convoluted with like the chicken and the egg and the Ouroboros snake and the thing that caused this, that, or the other. And I like that there really isn't that here. I know there's probably some people that could say that there is, but I don't think there is. I like that I was going
to say, this is actually more explained than any of the other Jones stuff that we get.
That
like
too,
what Indiana Jones is really good at doing as a franchise is like saying this is a historical artifact that is supposed to have some power. Of course it doesn't have any power because, you know, miracles aren't a thing. But then you get there and it does have power and you're like, that's weird. Why does it have power? And you don't get an answer.
God,
so like
that's why.
the fact that the fact that like the dial pointed them to something that is essentially a natural occurrence and they had no control over it, it worked really well.
Yeah, so exactly. I like this version of a time machine and that it's just a time compass. I like like so often with like a lesser movie, just because they're not thinking about it, you go back, they all speak English, they all just communicate, just because like they're all speaking the ancient language, they're looking at the planes and they're saying they're dragons, but it's not super campy. Right. I also really appreciate, because again, so often he's already started making the Antikythera. They don't show up and inspire the idea, creating that loop of like
that
which
paradox.
One?
I was really worried it was going to be a grandfather paradox.
I hate that shit. I really do, because it's just I don't hate the concept, but it's overdone. So I really like that he's already started working on it. So it's cool that he sees the completed one, and it's cool that he understands what's happening because he's already had this in mind and he kind of has an idea of what's going on.
It's also a really cool way to introduce the character without being like crazy heavy-handed, like having somebody come in and yell Archimedes or
exactly. I also like
you know, or like waiting until, you know, Jones shows up and Jones just looks at him and knows it's Archimedes. Like to have like the dial as the connecting piece is a really good way to introduce the character.
I also like I don't know if this guy playing Archimedes is like a well-known actor or not, but I like that I don't recognize him. Like, I like that they didn't get Bill Murray to play Archimedes. Like, you know, because they do that sometimes with time travel movies and lesser films where it's just, it's just fun, recognizable people. Like, it feels like we're back there. Like, as far as the audience, like, it feels like we're back in this battle. It feels immersive because they put some thought and effort into it. And I really appreciate that. And
I like that, maybe because of how beat up the plane is, but I like that the armies kind of have a chance against the planes.
Well, yeah, it was cool. They're just pelting it with great big arrows and like it was awesome.
To see the war machines at work is amazing.
That was very
I don't
fun.
really do a lot of study in like ancient Greek and stuff, but I did not realize the amount of machinery that the Greeks might have used in warfare.
Right.
Like,
it's dope.
That's nuts.
It was very cool. And then I really, really, really love the moment between Jones, Wombat, and Archimedes. The communication where they're using the old language and both of them can use it, where Jones is just starstruck. He's like a little kid, and Archimedes is just fascinated. But more than both of those things, I love how painfully Helena has to explain and convince Archimedes that Jones can't stay. She's so with it, and the acting is great. I think the writing is great, and the environment is so. She's having to be excited and happy for Teddy, who just landed a plane. Like, she goes right into mom mode. Then Jones wants to stay, and she goes right into kid mode. And then Archimedes doesn't know what's happening, so she's right into academic mode. And like, I love all of it. I love that some of the biggest lines are not even in English. Like, sorry, you have to read a little bit. And she's also keeping track of like the time travel. Like, you can't keep that. You have to build your own. You have to give that back. He can't stay. Like, it's interesting and it's tragic.
I really love that moment.
Right?
With her.
Yes.
Like, that was when like all the other action sequences, I'm like, they're gonna be fine.
They're fine.
It'll be fine. But in this moment, I was like, I genuinely do not know if Jones is gonna die on the spot, if he's gonna stay and live in Greece forever, if he's gonna decide to go back. Like, I genuinely had no idea what was going to happen. And her character gets this really fun, intense moment for an actor to have all these different motivations that you were talking about, right? Like, she needs Jones to come back with her. She's trying to be like, oh my gosh, the kid just landed a plane. That's great. I am talking to Archimedes in ancient Greece. I convinced him to not take that because there cannot be a time paradox. I have to switch between English and ancient Greek because I know that. And it's just like the amount of stuff that she's doing in that scene is crazy.
I think, and she sells it. Like, you feel it. She doesn't want to lose this father figure character again. And I believe it, but I'm equally torn in, like, he won't ruin the timeline. Let him stay. He wants to stay. This would be amazing. I love that as soon as he lands, he's just in awe the whole time.
Yeah.
I love it. All of it's believable. And I think in the end, I do like that she brings him back. Of course,
dude,
first
the
you're a little
moment
frustrated.
she punched him, I actually shouted. I was like, yes! Like,
Take control.
it was such a good way to end that moment where, like, you constantly have the person that's like, this is my lifelong dream. I want to stay here and sacrifice my life in the present to be a part of the past or the future or whatever. And a lot of the times that works pretty well for the character and the story. Like, okay, sure, this is where you belong. Maybe you were born at a time or something, right? But then, like, for her to make the executive decision, be like, you are shot and dying, and I am bringing you back, and you just have to live with that. And I was like, yes!
I do like how it's not, like, empty, like, in the end. Because, like, he's like, why am I back? Like, who am I here for? And we're reminded, it's not just that Marion's back, but Jones is not a character who doesn't have anybody. And he never has been. The movies have always been built up on he's surrounded by friends that love him and that he loves, and he's just kind of forgotten that. And I like that they bring back Saul and Saul's grandkids, who Jones is definitely like an uncle to, and just like a reminder, like, you have people, you dumbass. You can't just run off to ancient Greece and stay there. Because, like, for characters like, since we've been talking about it, Rios in Picard season 2, he doesn't have anyone beyond his crew.
Right.
And it kind of, it's, you could argue that his crew is also his family, but at the same time, it's different. And so sometimes when characters end up staying, like, I wouldn't have been upset, I think is my big point here, is if they wrote it where Jones did stay, I would not have been upset. Because the idea that he lives out the rest of his days in ancient Greece, constantly being in awe, I'm okay with that. But Helena also bringing him back because he doesn't belong, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with either one. I think either one really, really works, but it's more powerful watching her and her ancient Greek monologue. Like, it's just, I really love it.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment. Like, and I feel like it's really funny that this is the climax of the story in this last movie here, because I think it's kind of the problem that I've been having with these movies, and then the growth that these movies had into kind of what I wanted put in a scene a little bit. Because it's like, I never had a problem with the fact that these movies are action adventure, find the treasure, bring it back, put it in a museum, fun little romp adventures. But, like, the fact that he was like, I mean, yeah, he's had friends from the beginning, but he's a dismissive jerk to everyone he knows. And
his friends die a lot.
I do not like the character. And that is the only thing they give me in the, like, first couple movies to attach myself to. And I'm like, side with the people who don't like him. I don't side with the villains per se, but if someone's shouting at him because he's doing dumb things, I'm on their side. Like, and the fact that, all that kind of comes together, and they give him more and more acknowledgement of the relationships that he has as the series and franchise evolves. All of it to come to this moment at the end where he has to choose between staying in Greece, which is like the ultimate archaeological dream, or going back to his friends and family, and he doesn't even get to make the choice. Honestly, I love it. I don't know if I can really put it into words. I think what I've said is the best way I can express it, but for some reason, somehow the franchise became about solving the problem that I didn't like in the first couple of movies. And that's interesting. I like
what a
that.
Twist. Tis it a whale?
This one,
tis a whale! Yes, franchise as a whole?
Whale ahoy! Get the harpoon.
Whoa, wait. We don't take the metaphor that far.
It's from Moby Dick. I don't need to know what to do.
I know where this started. But anyway. Yeah, I do find it kind of interesting that we end with him grabbing the hat again. Like, don't
I saw it coming
me.
too.
Well, for one, I do like that. Okay, in a way, Helena is like the new Jones. If they made a movie about her, I'd watch it. But like, it's not portrayed in the movie. She doesn't pick up the hat. She doesn't even use the whip.
Take any of the icons.
Nothing.
Even, yeah.
It's not a torch passing movie. It just isn't.
Mm-mm.
And I like that because they flirt with that in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in ways that are kind of dumb. So I like that that's not it. But also, there's not gonna be a sixth one. He's like 83.
No.
So just stop. I mean, let the hat rest.
It has to do with the stubbornness of the character. Like,
probably
he can't rest. It's like, it's kind of a Captain America, I can do this all day sort of situation. Like,
yeah, but he illustrates in this movie he can't.
That's true. I think maybe it's supposed to speak more to the rejuvenation of the character. Like when we meet him after the little like opening adventure, he is a grumpy old man and a grumpy old professor, and he is so unhappy about being retired that he gives his clock away the moment he walks out the door. Although I will say, I laughed the moment they handed him the clock. I was like, "Time's up."
Yeah, it's kind of rough.
It was like a super obvious symbol, like in his face. Anyway, and then like he just hands that to the first person he sees on the street. Like he's clearly unhappy and disgruntled with his life. He is not. He's not tied to that adventurous version of himself at all. He's lost the people that he cares about. Like he is just, a kind of really struggling character. And at the end, when he takes his hat, it's like the end of the character is rejuvenated. Like the character is back to being himself. Maybe he's not gonna go on any crazy adventures anymore because joints do have an expiration date,
right.
But he
as far as an ending goes,
he's back.
Yeah,
it's kind of the way.
But that's what they said when Marion gets back. She says Helena said you were, or Saul said, Helena, whoever called her, says you were back, and clearly that's not referring to back from the past. That's he was checked out after Mutt's death, and now he's back, and I think they do that very well. And I guess as far as an ending goes, it's cool. Like I like that he's back with Marion. He's got his friends and whatnot. It's just the idea of him living out his days in ancient Greece versus now. It's like, okay, so are you done or are you not done? Like what's the deal?
What I like to think is that very, very belatedly, he's decided to embark on the adventure of having like a family. Like, sure, there was the family aspect, but that kind of like accidentally happened to him. And it's not like he was unhappy about it in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. In fact, he embraced it the moment he found out.
Right.
But he, like, that's not something he like really planned on doing. And then it got interrupted and he kind of slipped into like a depression from that. And then after reconnecting kind of explosively with his goddaughter, he kind of refocuses himself. Like I don't see any indications in those last couple scenes that he's going to do anything with archaeology. I mean, it's Indiana Jones, so it's always going to be a part of his life, but I don't see him going back to teach at a college per se. What I do see him doing is really putting all that energy into making and using, like putting value into the connections and the people that he has in his life.
Maybe he finds the Fountain of Youth and they just make another trilogy after that and they recast him.
Fountain of Youth comes with a face change too. Who knows?
Who knew? Who knows? But that's Indiana Jones. Do you have any like initial thoughts on the franchise as a whole? Because we are beyond our time. This is the longest one we've done.
Yeah, fastest note I guess would just be, I don't know that I'm ever really going to enjoy the first couple of movies, but I will say the last couple had me. I was interested. I was invested. I like the way that it evolved as a series. Like I like that it grew and changed and developed, and it wasn't just like the same shtick again and again and again. Even though they were able to do their formula again and again and again, it didn't feel too repetitive. Once they started bringing in the relationships and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that it ended better, for me at least, than it started. So there's that.
There. I think as a whole, I do really enjoy this franchise. I don't know how well I could put them like in order, because I love the third one. I love the fifth one. I love Dial of Destiny. I don't know which one I love more though. And then the same for 1 and 2. 1 and 2 kind of go back and forth as far as like in equal parts in my mind. I do not like the fourth one, just categorically. I do not. I just don't. It's so funny
I
that
don't
it ended up being
really
your favorite
get it,
one.
why people hate that movie. I gotta be honest, I don't really get it.
I think it's what I think I made my points very clear in the last one. I just don't think it's structured very
No, you
well.
did, and it's not like we have to reopen the debate. It's just like I went into it knowing that people hated it, and kind of went.
Oh well, okay. The hate, no. I think there's bandwagon hate for sure, and I think a lot of it still came from people didn't like that it was aliens, not being able to adjust your suspension of disbelief a little bit when you've already dealt with two completely different realms of supernatural stuff. It's like, oh, but the aliens are too far. Those are too far for you. You're the problem. That was why a lot of people didn't like that. I don't agree with that for sure. But anyway.
Well, yeah.
We could go on.
Can of worms. Let's not do it.
Yeah, we could go on forever because that's us. But that's Indiana Jones, and like, do we tell the people who are definitely still here an hour in?
Oh yeah.
What we're doing next, or is it just we've got tens of listeners. You know we do.
Oh yeah, a whole
sure.
like,
But like,
0.1.
do we allude to the next project, or is it just a surprise?
I mean, we can allude, but then you're tied on how you release these. And is that something that you wanna?
I mean, do you feel like we're gonna change our mind within the next 7 days as to which one we start?
No, I just wasn't sure how immediately you were putting these together and releasing them, and if you might need to like make adjustments to the schedule at some point or another.
I mean,
and if you say we're going to the next project at the end of the last project, then you are committing to that particular switch. But
yeah, it's not that big of a deal because, again, because of the lack of audience, it really doesn't matter. But
okay,
I guess executive decision, you don't get to know. You'll just have to find out next week.
Oh yes, the suspense that our
oh my gosh,
one listener
they can't
have.
believe it. It's so crazy. It's a madhouse over here. Anyway, okay,
well,
bye.
we're not monkeying around, so.
I already said it was a madhouse. That's the hint. Okay, we're done.